Let's have a look at some more examples. We want to factor the following polynomials completely. That means I have to keep factoring if there is something that I can do. A polynomial that cannot be factored is called prime. Just like a prime number. For instance, the number 7 is prime, while the number 14 is not. 14 is not prime because 14 is the same thing as 2 times 7. Both of these are prime. This one is called a composite. Prime numbers, composite numbers. So, I have 24x cubed minus 3. The first thing that I will always do is, as I mentioned before, is I look for a GCF. And there is a greatest common factor in both terms, and that is the factor of 3. So that means I can factor out, and if I factor out a 3 out of 24x cubed, then I'm left with 8x cubed. And if I take the 3 out of a negative 3, I'm left with a negative 1. Okay, this is all equal to. Now I look what I'm left with, 8x cubed minus 1. These are two terms, and I see this is the difference of two cubes. So I'm using my formula for the difference of two cubes. Remember SOAP, same opposite, always positive. So what am I going to do with this? Let's use square brackets. This is 2x cubed minus 1 cubed. So a is equal to 2x and b is equal to 1. A is equal to 2x and b is equal to 1. And that means now that I can write this with my formula. All right, so the first one is 2x minus 1. It has the same sign as before. Now in my second factor, I'm having 2x squared. The opposite sign of negative is positive. And I get 2x times 1 plus the last one squared, which is 1 squared. Now I'm just simplifying this factor, and I'm going to get, this is all equal to 3 times 2x minus 1 times 4x squared plus 2x plus 1. A lot of times we are trying to skip this step right here and immediately write down this. But then a lot of times what happens is that we are doing silly, simple mistakes. So writing down this step right here might help you to focus and to get the problem right. Let's do another one. We are supposed to completely factor 4x squared minus 16x minus 48. So these are three terms, but if that is what I'm looking for immediately, then I'm missing that there is also a greatest common factor in all of these terms, and that is the integer 4. So in my first step, I attempt to factor out the 4 out of all terms. Taking out the 4 out of 4x squared leaves me with an x squared minus 4x minus 12. Okay, so now I'm trying to factor x squared minus 4x minus 12. This is a trinomial with leading coefficient 1. And the question that I'm asking myself, can I find two numbers whose product is negative 12? A times b, which is equal to negative 12. And at the same time, a plus b has to be equal to negative 4. And I can find two numbers. I can find the number 2 times a negative 6 is negative 12. and 2 plus and negative 6, that is negative 4. So positive 2 and negative 6 are going to be working. Now I look, all factors are what we call prime. I cannot factor any further. All right, what do we have next? We have again 3 terms, a trinomial, but as in the examples from before, I have a common factor. This common factor is in this case 3x. So if I take out the 3x out of all terms in my first term, I'm going to be left with an x squared minus 10x. Let's have a look. The x comes out, 75 divided by 3. That would be positive 25. Now what I'm left with is again a trinomial leading coefficient 1. Actually, this is a special one, because 2 numbers multiplied together gives you a positive 25, are negative 5 and negative 5. So, in other words, this factor shows up twice. I can leave it like this, but I could also write down x minus 5 squared. All right, last example, if I'm not mistaken, even though this one says example 2 now. I believe this one was example 4. It doesn't matter. Let's just erase it completely. So we want to factor 5x to the 4th minus 45x squared. Again, what is a common factor between these 2 terms? I see a 5x squared. If I take it out of my first one, I'm left with an x squared. If I take it out of the last one, I'm left with a negative 9. Now I step back and I look at my second factor, x squared minus 9. This is the difference of 2 squares. So x squared minus 9 is the same thing as x plus 3 times x minus 3. Now I have it completely factored.